आता वाज आहे. आता आम्ही शेप्स आणि घेऊ. आता आमकां शेप्स शिकयता. ही डायमंड शेप. ही खंयची शेप?
डायमंड शेप.
ही रेक्टेंगल शेप. ही खंयची शेप?
रेक्टेंगल.
ही ट्रायंगल शेप. ही खंयची शेप?
ट्रायंगल.
जर येवल्या तर तू कर. ना बेबी रॉंग. पळय, सर्कल हा सर्कलाचेर दवरूंक जाय. वो स्क्वेअर स्क्वेअराचेर. सर्कल सर्कलाचेरूच आनी स्क्वेअर स्क्वेअराचेर. आतां येवले तर तू कर. व्हेरी गुड.
Hello friends, and welcome once again to CCR TV. We just saw a little demonstration by these two little children playing with their toys, and then they came to the block where they showed how we cannot afford to be square pegs in round holes and vice versa. So these little children taught us a very valuable lesson, and many a time we grown-ups are like square pegs in round holes. So this idiomatic phrase, square pegs in round holes, can be interpreted physically with the example of a mortar and pestle. Let me demonstrate it for you here. Here we have a pestle, and here we have a mortar. The pestle is round, the mortar is also round. So you have a round shape fitting a round mortar. But there are times when the pestle could be a square, and if you will notice, the mortar is round but the pestle is square. And if you are wanting to mash up some ginger, some garlic, this square pestle doesn't fit properly, and you will not get the adequate masala that you want. So you will need to use a round pestle, see the shape, in a round mortar. So let us see how we can think in terms of representing the mortar and pestle as something abstract. For instance, unsuitability for a particular role in a particular situation or environment. There's a mismatch or misalignment wherein a person doesn't belong or isn't compatible with the environment and isn't quite suitable for the task at hand. Now let's look at an example. A Western actor, maybe from the US, the UK, and he has only enacted serious roles in English in the past. And now an Indian producer director has offered him a role in a Hindi or Indian film involving song and dance sequences. Now every person in India would say, how can a Western actor do song and dance in Hindi? And they would consider the actor as a square peg in a round hole. In other words, to quote a simple definition, a square peg in a round hole, when referring to persons, is someone who does not fit in a particular place or situation because his character or his personality traits make him unsuitable to be there. Let me give you my vivid example. I remember attending a stag party. In Goa, we call them ros, and stag party is only for men. So it was a stag party of a soon to be married young relative of mine. I was invited, I went, but believe me, I felt a square peg in a round hole right from the start, because the atmosphere was thick with smoke, and obviously I don't smoke, so I couldn't tolerate it. But invariably, after a couple of drinks, they started cracking dirty jokes, filthy jokes, and I felt a total square peg in a round hole, and I walked out. Now let me tell you how I hit upon this topic of a square peg in a round hole. Well, recently my granddaughter Abigail, having finished high school, got admission in the art stream of a higher secondary school, despite having secured marks that could have easily got her admission into the science stream. So when I asked her about it, she simply said, "Papa, the science stream was not my choice because I would have felt like a square peg in a round hole." And then she added, "I sincerely hope some of my schoolmates who have chosen science or commerce despite having relatively low percentages will not regret their choices and become square pegs in round holes." Abigail's response was a reflection of what I have come to believe down the years, that many of our teenagers don't have proper guidance and therefore no proper focus or clue about what they should be doing in preparation for their future lives. They blindly follow what their friends do. That's called the herd mentality. And so they follow the herd mentality and conform to the behavior and beliefs of the group of friends to which they belong. And in no time, they become square pegs in round holes, because that was not what they wanted to do. They just followed their friends. Sadly, quite a few of our youth at pre-collegiate or college levels take up courses of study which they are not suited for. They seem to be aimlessly drifting from one year to the next in college, having no proper clue about what they intend doing. They may ultimately end up as dropouts, neither here nor there, and may remain jobless or feel obliged to take up unsuitable jobs. If you have read the newspapers, in the UP, there are some postgraduates who have applied for peons' jobs. And if they did get the job, imagine they would have been square pegs in round holes, because with all their education, they would be doing a peon's job. On the other hand, those who do continue with their graduation, if you ask them, they will vaguely say, "I'll apply for a job after I finish," or "I shall become an insurance agent, and if nothing else, I'll become a teacher," as if becoming a teacher is that easy. It would seem as if they have no proper goal or ambition in life. Truly, many of them are lacking in assiduity and diligence, hard work. They are clueless about the highly competitive world they are entering. They don't realize that today, with 99%, there are many who are struggling to get into medicine. The world is very, very competitive. Unless you have money to grease the palms of principles, or you have political influence. Some parents bitterly complain about their children's attitude. And what is that attitude? That they should be supported by their parents from the cradle to the grave. And some children audaciously ask their parents, "Why did you bring me into the world if you don't want to support me till I die?" How ridiculous, isn't it? The only goal among some males seems to be to eat, drink, and make merry. At whose expense? At the parents' expense or their working siblings' cost. Otherwise, they threaten to commit suicide, and they may even resort to becoming drug peddlers or pimps engaged in prostitution rings. And mind you, all of this, unfortunately, knowingly or unknowingly, they become cases of square pegs in round holes and become no credit to God, family, school, college, nation, or society. Equally sad is the situation with adults at their workplaces or in their marriages, and quite often even in religious vocations. Let me describe what I mean. Many adults are in jobs where they feel themselves to be square pegs in round holes. They feel obligated to stay on in their jobs because there's no other earning member, and they stay on despite long hours and poor salaries and other injustices. For example, favoritism, where persons who don't deserve a better salary get it. Let me give you my example. I began as a teacher and I was happy, really content to be a teacher. And this was way back in 1971. And of course, family and friends said, "What are you in teaching for? Join a bank. You will get better salary and you'll get many perks like free or low cost housing and things like that." And what do you think I did? I gave up my teaching job where I was happy and I took up banking. I even became an officer within 3 years because it was a British bank and they did not look at experience or years as much as your abilities. So I was an officer. And mind you, I was bored, absolutely bored, and literally felt myself a square peg in a round hole. As a clerk to begin with, I would finish my work and then go to the canteen for numerous cups of tea. My boss just pulled me up and said, "Are you here? Then you go to the canteen and work there, but don't come to the bank." And then I was told by other bankers, "Just pretend to be turning pages. That is what the officers like." Okay, if that is the case, I would do it. I really was not happy in the bank. But I think I would have continued until God intervened. And because of my wife's illness, I was forced to give up the bank and I came down to Goa and came back to teaching. That was my experience. Now let's look at what happens in some marriages. Many marriages are unhappy ones, where one or the other spouse feels like a square peg in a round hole, wondering what has become of the wonderful dreams they had at the start of their marriage. And they ask, "What did I see in him or her which made me say yes to this marriage?" But Most couples linger on when they have children because they feel, okay, what will our children do if we divorce? So that is where these marriages, though they are really broken, they continue because either of them lives on as a square peg in a round hole. I remember one of my colleagues saying, once my children grow up, then I will separate, leave my wife, because the children will now be on their own and I will live my own life. A very tragic case. Today, some enter into marriages to satisfy their parents. Here I'd like to share two tragic examples. First, of Sonu and Monu. Sonu and Monu were neighbors, one from a rich family, the other from a not so rich family, you would say middle class. What was the situation? Sonu was an extrovert, loved to dance and parties and drinking and maybe even drugs, whereas Monu was more a home-loving person and never even entered a dance hall because her parents never permitted it. What happened was Sonu's mother became an alcoholic when her husband passed away, and she could not manage her home, she could not manage her son, and so she said, I might as well get a daughter-in-law who will look after my son, look after me, and look after the house. But that was a wrong step to take. This daughter-in-law was a square peg in a round hole. She could not manage. She became a nervous wreck and had a nervous breakdown. Let's look at Ritu's case. Richa or Ritu was maybe like a mouse. She should have joined a convent. But for whatever reason, her parents forced her to get married. And do you know what happened? On the very first night, when her now validly married husband touched her, she screamed in fear and anxiety, how dare you touch me? She didn't realize that conjugal love meant touching each other. Her marriage was doomed from the start, and she also was a square peg in a round hole. She ran away from that marriage, came back to her parents' home. And as I told you, Monu's case, she became a depressed case and needs counseling till today. How does one avoid becoming a square peg in a round hole? I'll take it in the three parts. As regards children in high school, ensure that they have proper guidance and counselors who can guide them, who will provide direction, because many children are lost when their parents are both working and they have no one to turn to. In the family, ensure that your children experience your unconditional love together with firm parental controls where necessary, and begin at an early age. Don't wait to control your children when they are grown up. Control them also about the friends they have, and ensure that you controlled their devices, their mobiles, their computers. Together with love, provide them encouragement, understanding, and guidance in the subject and course choices they will make in future. At all times, avoid pushing your children into areas they are not comfortable with. I remember a young girl, brilliant. She got 90% and could not get into medicine. Her father was very eager to get her into medicine, and He was so angry that he almost disowned this girl. Mind you, she's got 90%, which is high, but the medical colleges wanted 94 and 95 and 96%. This girl became a wreck. She got no love and encouragement from the parents and did not know what to do. She ultimately took up arts, and I hope she's doing well. I've lost contact with her. Parents, be careful. Likewise, when it comes to marriage proposals of your children, have both eyes and ears open. Don't rush to the first person who proposes. Make enquiries about the background of the child. And once married, if problems arise and persist, then seek counseling from competent personnel, including priests. Now, aim to be intentional and purposive about your marriage, particularly focusing on your marriage vows. Spend time together in prayer and common tasks. That will help you to avoid becoming square pegs in round holes. Now, it's a sad case that quite a few religious vocations, priests, nuns, brothers, have shown up to become square pegs in round holes. Maybe they did not get proper screening and advice and guidance when it was needed, and they thought becoming a priest or nun was the only option. Let me give you my example again. When I finished school, I thought I should become a priest. In fact, many people still think I should be a priest. That's apart. I was wanting to become a priest on my own terms. I wanted to do the priestly studies, but also go to college and simultaneously do priestly studies and college studies. So I applied to some seminaries, and I got a call from St. Charles, Nagpur, and from the Holy Cross, Bangalore. Both were equally appealing because both would permit me to continue with my studies. I had as my school principal Father Ferdinand Fonseca in Bombay, who in the few years from that time became the Bishop of Bombay. So I went to Father Ferdy, as we all called him, and asked him, see, I have a choice between St. Charles and Holy Cross, Bangalore. He pulled me up. He said, why do you want to go there when we have a seminary in Bombay? I said, the seminary in Bombay doesn't permit you to do your studies in a college and at the same time do your priestly studies. So then Father bluntly asked me, do you want to become a priest to serve the Lord, or do you want to get education? Just choose. Because if you do this wrong thing of going to Bangalore or wherever, Nasik or Nagpur, you might become a square peg in a round hole. Don't do this. Choose wisely. I listened to Bishop Ferdy and I continued with my education on my own. Not only education but also my post-graduation. And that is when I felt I was not exactly a square peg in a round hole. All said and done, if one is a square peg in a round hole, be an integrated one by acknowledging that you may be a square peg in a round hole. Don't resist that knowledge. Acknowledge that you are different and seek guidance and counseling when necessary. Aim to have a one-to-one correspondence between yourself as a square peg in a round hole and your square peg in a square hole. Let's look at this again. As I told you, this is the mortar, this is the pestle, and it's round and round. So there is a one-to-one correspondence between roundness of the pestle and the roundness of the mortar. So aim to be having a correspondence between your squareness or your roundness. So if you are round, you are round, and don't worry about people calling you a square peg in a round hole. I want to wish you all the best. There is so much more to talk about when one thinks of a round hole and a round peg, a square hole and a square peg. But don't worry. With prayer, with perseverance, if you are a square peg in a round hole, the Lord will lead you out of it, or at least help you to adjust your life wherever you are. I want to wish you all the best, and thank you for a patient hearing. God bless all of you.